All right, let's review. GIST stands for Generating Interactions Between Schema and Text. All right, and we're going to practice using the 4 steps of GIST. Delete unnecessary or repetitious material. Collapse details and examples into broader categories. We want to find our key ideas, and remember that includes who, what, where, why, and how. And we want to use the author's structure. And remember we talked about structure meaning the way that the text was put together, whether it was a list or chronological order, cause and effect, problem and solution, etc. All right? So let's take a look at a real piece of text. This is a text about mummies. And we're going to read through here and see if we can use any of the steps of GIST. Here's the first paragraph. What is a mummy, and why do we find mummies so fascinating? We've all heard of old-time horror movies with names like The Mummy's Hand, The Mummy's Ghost, and The Mummy's Tomb. And then there is The Mummy's Curse. Even today, there are people who believe that anyone who has ever gone near a mummy will meet with sudden misfortune. Okay, well, I know a little bit about how things are written, and sometimes I know that the author likes to give us a hook in the first paragraph just to get us interested. I don't really think that there's anything in this first paragraph that I need to capture in order to create an effective summary, except for maybe the fact that this piece of writing is about mummies. So I do know that the topic is mummies, and I can sort of record that over here to the side. All right, next paragraph. Yet a mummy is nothing more than a dead body, either human or animal. All right, well that seems like a pretty key idea to me because it's answering the question, what is a mummy? So a mummy is a dead body, either human or animal. And I'm going to capture that as a key idea. And I can just write the word key over here in the margin. Next sentence. Perhaps the reason mummies fill some of us with fear and fire up our imagination is that they are so lifelike. Well, in this sentence, I don't really sense anything that's that key. Talking about filling us with fear and firing up our imagination, that doesn't really tell me what a mummy is or how it's formed. So I'm going to delete that. I'm just going to get rid of this first part. And I'm going to put a little X in the margin to remind myself that I deleted some unnecessary material there. But I am going to keep the word lifelike because that tells me about mummies, something about them that seems kind of key. So I'm going to hold on to that one. Next sentence. Many Egyptian mummies are thousands of years old. Okay, well, who, what, where, when, why, and how. Where? Egypt. That seems kind of key. And thousands of years old, that seems kind of key too because it tells me when. So I'm going to keep those 2 key ideas and just get rid of the rest of it. All right, here's the next sentence. But they still have their hair, their fingernails, and toenails, and even their eyelashes. Okay, let's take a look back here. Delete unnecessary or repetitious material. We found some key ideas. This one seems good for this example here. Collapse details and examples into broader categories. Those are details. When we talk about hair, fingernails, toenails, and eyelashes. So I think I'm going to collapse all these little details into a broader category. What would be a broader category? I could say hair, fingernails, toenails, and eyelashes are all, I think I might call those human features. So here I have collapsed all of these details into a broader category of human features. So, but they still have their, I'm going to get rid of all of these, and then I'm going to draw an arrow and I'm going to insert that overarching phrase instead of all the details. All right, moving on. Their flesh and their features are well preserved. Well, we've talked about features, so I'm going to get rid of that because that's repetitious material. And we haven't really talked about the word flesh yet. So flesh, well preserved. That kind of goes along with describing what a mummy is and how it's formed because it's well preserved. So I'm going to keep those as key ideas going along with what and how. In looking at photographs taken when the mummies were discovered in recent times, we can tell them apart and recognize their faces. Let's see. In looking at photographs taken when the mummies were discovered in recent times, we can tell them apart and recognize their faces. You know, tell them apart and recognize their faces, that would mean that they are lifelike. So I'm going to get rid of this sentence and say that I am deleting repetitious material because we've already really talked about the fact that they're lifelike. Next paragraph. A mummy, of course, is a dead body that has been preserved. All right, well, we know, we've already talked about the word preserved. So I'm going to delete that as repetitious. And we've also already discovered that a mummy is a dead body. So I can really get rid of this entire part right here in the name of deleting repetitious material. All right, then the next part talks about that they are preserved either accidentally by nature or on purpose by humans. I'm going to keep that. And I'm going to call that a key idea because it does describe how they are formed. Without preservation, dead animal matter usually decays very quickly. Without preservation. Now, with mummies, we're talking about the act of preservation. And this is talking about without preservation, that dead animal matter usually decays very quickly. So this is kind of telling me what's not happening with a mummy. Now, while this is really important for us to know, because it's important to know non-examples as much as it is examples, I'm going to get rid of this in terms of our summary as unnecessary at this point in time. Next sentence. This is true of plant matter too. A dead bird or cat, a piece of rotting fruit, can show us some of the stages of decay. Decay is caused by bacteria. Again, it seems like we're talking about what's not happening to a mummy. And we really want to focus in on the key ideas that tell us exactly what is happening when a mummy is preserved. So I'm going to just get rid of this. Of course, I'm going to hold it in my mind because this is important, because learning about decay helps me to understand how preservation takes place. But for the purpose of just writing our summary, I'm going to get rid of this and say that it's unnecessary. These microscopic organisms break down the tissues of once living things, returning them to nature in other forms. Once again, talking about what's not necessarily happening to a mummy. So I'm going to get rid of this and call it unnecessary. All right. Now that I've reached the end of my first page, what I want to do is capture my key ideas from what I've read so far onto a gist summary page. Now, I've only got 20 words to work with, so I've got to squeeze all these ideas into just 20 words. All right, so we know that our topic is mummies. And the first thing that I captured that I thought was really important is that, let's see, mummies are dead bodies either human or animal. All right, and my next key idea that I found, let's see, here's the word lifelike. I'm just going to add that in right here. Put a little caret, and I'm just going to add the word lifelike, because I'm already trying to preserve and conserve words here. I don't want to use them all up right away. All right, so my next key idea was that many Egyptian mummies are thousands of years old. All right, so let's see. I'm going to put the word Egyptian here, because that's what we're really talking about. Egyptian mummies are lifelike dead bodies, either human or animal. All right, so that covers that one. I can also add in mummies are thousands of years old. Okay, so I'm running into a problem here. I've only got one word left. Okay, so let's just keep going until we capture all these key ideas. Okay, when I collected the rest of my key ideas, I ended up with Egyptian mummies are lifelike dead bodies, either human or animal, that were preserved by nature or humans. Mummies, oops, forgot my S. Mummies are thousands of years old, and their features are well preserved. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, I ended up with 29 words here, so I need to pare that down a bit and see if I can end up with 20 words total. Okay, now is the time when you go back and use gist again. So, all right, let me read and see if I can find anything that was repeated. Egyptian mummies are lifelike dead bodies, either human or animal. Mummies are, okay, well here, I've already used the word mummies once, so I can get rid of the word mummies again here. Thousands of years old, and their features are well preserved. All right, let's see what I can do next. Let me see if I can combine sentences. All right, my final sentence, I got rid of some of the ideas that I didn't feel were as important as others, and I just tried to pare it down to the ideas that were the most important to give me an overall view of this topic. And my final sentence was, Egyptian mummies are thousand-year-old dead bodies that have been well preserved. And this captures the who, what, where, when, and why that I've been presented so far. One thing I'd like you to notice about using gist is it's different from the strategy we used for reading expository text. We didn't go through the steps of first finding the topic, determining our guiding questions, asking ourselves what we already know, and so on, because the text that we read was one that is called an inconsiderate text. There was no topic written at the top, no title. There are no bold-faced headings to guide us along. And gist is a great strategy for using when you have an inconsiderate text like this, because it gives you steps when you aren't able to look for bold-faced headings and look for other clues that the author has given you. Another thing to keep in mind about using gist, many teachers in the past have said, oh my gosh, well, it takes so long to go through all of these steps. It just seems like, why would you do that for every single text that you read? And the point is that you're not going to do this for every single text that you read. You're going to do this in the very beginning to give your students a mental process for generating a summary in their minds as they read. You'll go through this several times in class and model it for your students, but eventually what you want gist to become is something that happens on a subconscious level as students read and mentally organize the ideas.